You just saw how brutally overpowered this build is. It's just disgusting. And there's many cool things about this build. First and foremost, you can start crafting this from the very start of the game. This is not an endgame build. This is a build that you can craft from the very beginning of the game just by farming a specific certain boss. Now you can also craft it at Blacksmith, but all in all, it can be crafted from the very beginning of the game just by farming the Phantom Blade. Because that's the gear that we're using. We're using the Soul Eater's armor set. Another cool thing about this build is that you can actually quite literally use it with whichever weapon that you would like to use it. Because the set only requires for like 6 pieces, but it also consists on the Greatsword, Dual Blade, and the spear. So it's up to your personal preference which one of them are you going to be using. Now, the only downside is that you do need to have deep knowledge of the combo that you're going to be using, because essentially what this does, another one of the downsides, is that it is not until level 34 of your mastery weapon where you can unlock the actual Phantom Judgment, which is what it's going to allow you to extend the duration of the exhaustion form of the enemy when you exhaust them, so that you can perform a brutal attack. So one of the things that we're going to be building in towards is stamina damage, because this is a request that somebody had on the channel. Somebody had asked me if there was any reason why we should spec into stamina damage. This build has just proven that it's really overpowered, because you can get the enemy into the brutal attack state faster and then prolong that brutal attack state with this armor set so that you can deal much more damage. However, I usually have in my videos a set specific combo that I use for a set specific build. In this case scenario, I'm not going to do such a thing because it's there's many high damaging combos for each one of the weapons, and I cannot just go through all of them. So link in the description, there's my guide on each specific weapon so that you can take advantage of the longest possible combos and the requirements that you need to have for you to perform those combos so that you can actually get the most out of this build. That said, when it comes to the actual build on itself, like I mentioned, it's the Soul Eater's armor set. So what you want to have in here is that on your weapon, on your helmet, on your gloves, and on your boots, you can have stamina damage increase. Stamina damage increase I have, stamina damage increase right in here, and also we have frontal assault stamina damage increase in here. Another one thing that you can do is that you can increase the damage multiplier for brutal attacks. You will see in here that I have brutal attack damage, and I also believe that I have brutal attack damage increased by percentage right in here. One of the bonus sets is that it already gives you brutal attack damage increased 15%. However, the brutal attack is only going to happen like once. The extension is by using the Phantom Judgment, and the Phantom Judgment, I don't believe that's brutal attack damage. So instead, I'd say that these are the stats that I got without rolling them too much. If you can get like general enemy exhausted attack damage, that's even better, or just your general damage increase percentage, that's just going to be amazing. Also, you want to have max stamina, at least specifically for this build, because you want to have a very, very long lasting combo so that you can extend that combo towards whenever the enemy is exhausted. it really is no good if you don't have enough stamina for you to take advantage of that and leverage that if you actually have to be waiting before you can continue the combo. So you are going to need max stamina in here. Now, one more thing, that this is actually for a spear build perspective. This is going to change a little bit. I have the cutthroat armor pieces for the accessories right in here, that it gives you flat 20% damage increase whenever you're attacking someone from the back. On this specific build, I'm using Shadow Reversal, because when an enemy is exhausted, even if it's a boss that you're fighting at that time, if that boss is exhausted, you can use the Shadow Reversal to be on the back of the enemy and increase the 20% more damage. However, if you're using something different, like the Greatsword or like the Dual Blades, then in here you can have something like the Elements, which is just going to give you flat 10% damage, so that's going to be up to your personal preference. And as for the stats, like I have already explained on my videos and how the game calculates the damage sources that you have for everything, this is going to be somewhat different for you, because I'm on the endgame. All of the showcase that I'm giving you is on the endgame, but you might not be on the endgame. So what should you be focusing and prioritizing on? Well, you can use strength so that you can have A on your agility, because agility on A gives you the stamina recovery and also stamina cost decrease whenever you're dodging or performing actions. So you are going to need a little bit more strength probably than what I do, because vitality also gives you a little bit more of that weight capacity. We also have quite a lot of endurance. We have the hard cap from vitality and endurance because we want to extend our combos. And then finally, our main damage dealing stat, which is not going to be counting that much. If you have watched my videos, I have explained to you why it's not counting that much towards our general damage, because most of our damage, we're scaling it towards exhausted enemies and the backstabs of the enemies, and overall the armor set that we have in here to increase all of that. So proficiency is to some extent the last thing that we're focusing on, but it's also very useful because it gives you stamina cost decrease when you're dodging, while also scaling the damage of your weapon. So the build is actually quite subjective in here, so you do have to make some kind of adjustments if you're still leveling up your character. And the skill tree is also going to be somewhat subjective, because you're going to be probably using a Greatsword or Dual Blades in here for this particular build. I'm using my Spear. The one thing that you are going to need as a must with the Spear, at the very least, is going to be Shadow Reversal, because Shadow Reversal is going to allow for you to take advantage of that backstab damage. Also, one more thing that you're going to need, I have Trance in here. This is my main damage dealing skill, but you can have your very own damage dealing skill. Have in mind that you are also going to have the Phantom Judgment, which is going to extend whenever you see that the exhaustion on the enemy is depleting. After you have finished your highly damaging combo, you are going to extend it in here, so basically you have the double duration for the exhaustion of the enemy. So, which is why we are adding so much damage while the enemy is exhausted, because we want to take advantage of that as much as humanly possible. Furthermore, I think that the Swift Attack, the Moonlight skill tree, it's like a must for every spear user. This should be like the skeleton for everything, but also this is going to count towards everything, every single weapon, the resources. You want to have resources for every type of builds, because these guys are going to allow you to have more spirit. Remember that the more spirit you have and the more knowledge of the weapon that you have and the more skills that you're using, the more damage that you are going to be dealing with those long-lasting combos that you can pair up with your active skills if you have enough spirit. And you're also going to need spirit as well. You have to be mindful about your spirit, because this is going to cost you 3 points of spirit to actually use the Phantom Judgment. Well, exploration, this build is also very useful as well, because you're going to be exhausting the enemies like a maniac. Not only that, but for example with the Shadow Reversal, you can be abusing the Shadow Reversal with the smaller enemies. When you reach the elite enemies, you just can exhaust them and then one-shot them. Because of this, most of the bosses you're going to be able to one-shot them, like you saw on the previous rendition of everything. One thing that you do need to have in mind is that it's going to be like boss dependent in the level that you have and the level gear that you're leveling up. Remember that if you're still leveling with this type of build, you are going to necessarily have to be upgrading your gear as you level up. So that's something that you need to have in mind as well. But in general, the way that you want to play this build against bosses, which is still going to be very, very powerful and it's still going to basically abuse them, is that you want to have the most defensiveness possible that you can have, because the overall damage that you want to be dealing with this build, all of the damage calculation that we have in here is for when an enemy is exhausted. That's what you should be focusing on. Building your spirit so that we can, when you actually exhaust a boss, you can continue the assault with those infinite combos and you leverage that extra damage that you have on your armor pieces while the enemy is exhausted, and that extra bonus damage that you get from brutal attacks. If you like the content, like it, never super appreciated. Nostalgia that you're a gorgeous, beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.